This week I want to talk about comparison and competition. Now, how many times have you either compared yourself to someone on the internet or maybe someone you personally know and established this story in your mind about where you are in your own journey when you compare yourself to this other individual? I want to talk about that because I think that this is something that many of us do, especially now, especially with the popularity of social media, of becoming content creators, of wanting to be quote unquote influencers, how many likes we're getting, how viral, our content is going. And I think that it's dangerous for us to subscribe to this ideology that centers on comparison, because what that does is that it plants the seed of competition in our brains, and it makes us believe that we have to compete with others in order to validate ourselves or to attach a value of our worth and value to our work, when really, if you have been called to do something, whatever the something is, it doesn't matter who else is doing what you're doing, because the thing that makes you different is the fact that you are you. And so the way that the next person is delivering the same content or the same product or the same service that you're doing is not going to be the same way that you're going to do it, because they are not you. God has created each of us uniquely, with a unique purpose, with a unique way to deliver that purpose. It is what makes each of us special. It is that gift that you have to capitalize on, because no one else is you. And I say that because from as early as I can remember, even from childhood, we are taught that we have to compete with others, whether it's in sports, whether it's in school and in education, whether it's for the attention of boys or girls. We are taught to believe that we have to be something other than ourselves in order to be of value. And so I want to challenge you to think about, what is it that makes you special? What is it that God has given you that He hasn't given to anyone else? When I first started my podcast, 2 or 3 years ago, podcasting was not as popular as it is today. And it seems like now everyone has a podcast. And you know what? In the beginning, when I was the only one in my circle of influence, meaning when I was the only one from the connections that I had on social media, on Facebook, on Instagram, that was doing the podcasting, and I started seeing others who were my connections popping up and creating and developing their own podcasts, back then, I can say that I felt, I don't know what the proper term is, but I felt as if there wasn't enough room for all of us, because it's like, oh, well, this was my thing. This was what I was doing. Now, all of a sudden you see me doing it. Now you want to do it. And this was the mindset that I had back then. And of course, back then I was much more immature. I was not saved back then. And I didn't recognize that even though there were so many other new voices, coming out now with their own podcasts, what they did not take away from what I was doing. Even if what they were doing centered around the same topics and had the same guest, the way that they were delivering their own podcast was not the same way that I was delivering it, because each of us has different lived experiences. We have different points of view. We have different perspectives. We have different voices. So the way that I communicate something is not going to be the same way that someone else who's doing a podcast is communicating the same information. And so once I actually stepped back and got out of my own head and stopped operating from a place of ego and really started operating from a place of God and recognizing the gift that God had given me, I no longer felt that I had to compare myself to these other podcasts. I no longer felt that I was in competition with these podcasts. And this is something that I am continuing to learn about myself, especially as a storyteller, as a writer. There's so many different voices. There's so many different ways for us to share our stories from different mediums, whether it's through books, whether it's through podcasting, whether it's through video and this new YouTube series that I am creating, right? And I can take this as another example. I am not the first person to do a YouTube series. There are thousands, millions of other YouTube content creators, right? And so they might be looking at me, who is now entering their market, as a quote unquote copycat. And the reality is that the content that I'm delivering is not the same content that someone else might be delivering on their own channel. But being able to identify that the thing that makes us different and unique and special is the fact that we are who we are. And I wanted to talk about this because I think that this is something that we struggle with. I think that we have allowed ourselves to become so consumed with popularity and with numbers and with data and statistics and how well, quote unquote, we're liked, and how often our content is being shared, and how many people are talking about us. And so, yeah, it's really easy, to look at someone else who is doing, great numbers and has thousands of followers, and every post that they share is getting thousands of likes. But how valuable really is the information that they're sharing? What are you getting from their content? Because just because they're popular doesn't mean that they're great. Doesn't mean that the content that they're creating is going to be something that you connect with. And so I encourage you to just focus on the value that you bring through your own work, through your own art, through your own voice, through your own way of delivering what you're delivering in the way that only you can. Don't allow yourself to get hung up by what's happening around you, that you lose sight of the contribution that God has put you on this earth to give to others. You are here intentionally. The vision that God has given you is yours alone. He has equipped you. You have everything that you need to be great. And you don't need numbers to tell you that. You don't need followers to tell you that. All you need is the confidence and the confirmation that only God can give you. No follower can give you that. I think that if we invest so much of who we are based on others' opinions of us, then we're really not in a good place. Because if you give others the power to determine your value, then you also give them the power to take that away. And then what are you left with? Your value is not determined by how many people like you or connect with you, or share your content or like your posts. Your value comes from God and from the gifts that God has given you and how you are using those gifts to impact others. And I promise you that if you stay true to yourself, if you focus on yourself, if you begin to let go the need to compare yourself to what the next person is doing, God is going to make a way for you and your talent and your gifts. He is going to put you in front of the audiences that need what you have. He is going to open the doors that are going to provide the opportunities that are specifically for you. He will connect you with the people who can get you to that next level and elevate you to where you're supposed to be. Only God can do that. Like, no one can do that for you. No number of likes, no number of followers, no number of subscribers. None of that can determine who you are and what your value is in this world. And I say this because these are things that I myself have struggled with. And at times I still struggle with it. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I don't look at the number of likes that I'm getting. I'm not going to pretend that I don't look to see how far my reach is. But what I'm learning about myself and what I'm discovering is that I'm starting to rely less on those things and starting to focus more on the value that I am bringing through my work. And I'm asking myself, what kind of impact do I want my work to have? Who do I want to reach with the messages that I'm delivering? And then I sit and I talk to God and I pray and I ask him, connect me with the people who you want me to influence. Connect me with those individuals who need to hear my words and hear my messages. Always understanding that these words and these messages are coming directly from God. I'm just the vessel, as we all are. We all are the vessel for God to work through us, what his purpose is. So we have to stop putting so much focus and emphasis on this external world and really start focusing on what's happening within us. And why is it that we feel the need to compare ourselves? Why do we feel like we have to be in competition with the next person? Like, we can't do what they do the way they do it because we're not them. And God didn't give us their gifts. God gave us our gifts. And there's more than enough room for all of us to use our gifts and to succeed. I mean, no one ever questions why there's thousands of teachers in the world, right? We need thousands of teachers because there are millions of people. And one teacher cannot carry the burden and that load of educating the entire world. So we need multiple people to be out there teaching and using their gift of teaching to deliver the content and the message in the way that only they can. And the same holds true for all of us, for the coaches out there, right? There's too many people that need our help, and one coach can't get to everyone. The same is true for musicians. Imagine if we only had like one person who could be like a singer or one person who could play the drums. And it's impossible to believe that one person is able to carry that burden for an entire global community. So there is no competition. Doesn't matter how many of us are doing the same thing. No one is you. And that is the message that I want to leave you with. And so as you head into the rest of your day or your week, I challenge you to sit with yourself, take out your journal, and think about the many ways you're currently or have in the past compared yourself to others, and ask yourself, where is that coming from? And why are you finding the need to compare yourself to someone else when they don't have your gifts? And then ask yourself, what can you do moving forward to step more fully into your gifts so that you can deliver them in the way that only you can? What makes you different? What makes you special? What is going to attract your people, your audience, your client, your customer to you? And think about all of the things that make you you. And then expand on that and then use those things in your work. Because what you have, no one else has. What I have, no one else has. And that is the beauty of all of us being unique and being individual. So thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of In Conversation. If you enjoyed this conversation, make sure that you give us a like, leave me a comment, make sure you subscribe, and share us with others who need to hear this message. Because at the end of the day, there is no competition. Until next time.